What he thought was flirting was actually an ancient alien ritual. Cosmic misunderstanding. The celestial Pearl space station hung like a jewel against the backdrop of the Andromeda Nebula, its crystalline arms capturing and refracting the light of distant stars. Zane Reynolds adjusted his uniform jacket as he made his way through the bustling diplomatic quarter, navigating between delegates from a dozen different star systems. As the lead cartographer for the Terran Exploration Guild, Zane was responsible for mapping the newly discovered Epsilon sector. His latest charts had garnered attention from several species interested in establishing trade routes, which explained his presence at this high-level diplomatic gathering. "Mr. Reynolds," a voice called from behind, "your stellar drift calculations are simply remarkable." Zane turned to find Ambassador Krell, his exoskeleton gleaming under the ambient lighting. The insectoid diplomat clicked his mandibles appreciatively. "The Hive Consortium would be most grateful if you would consider presenting your findings at our next conclave." "I'd be honored, Ambassador," Zane replied with a slight bow. 6 years working in interstellar diplomacy had taught him the proper protocols for most species, though new civilizations were being encountered at an increasing rate. As Krell moved away to greet other guests, Zane took a moment to observe the room. Representatives from across the known galaxy mingled in small groups, some humanoid, others decidedly not. The Terran Exploration Guild had emphasized the importance of this gathering. With tensions rising along the borders of several star systems, peaceful cooperation in mapping efforts was more crucial than ever. Zane made his way to the refreshment table, selecting what appeared to be a safe option for human consumption, a crystallized nectar from the gardens of Proxima Centauri. As he took a cautious sip, his attention was drawn to a figure approaching from across the chamber. She moved with extraordinary grace, her skin a pale blue that seemed to shimmer with subtle iridescence. Her features were mostly humanoid, though her eyes, larger than human norm and a stunning violet hue, marked her as something else entirely. Her silver-white hair fell in intricate braids adorned with what appeared to be living luminescent flowers. "You must be the human cartographer," she said as she reached him, her voice melodic with an accent he couldn't place. "I've studied your work on the Epsilon sector. Quite innovative for someone from such a young spacefaring species." Zane found himself momentarily speechless, an unusual occurrence for someone who regularly negotiated with beings whose appearance might generously be described as challenging to human sensibilities. "Zane Reynolds," he finally managed, extending his hand in the human greeting custom. "Terran Exploration Guild." She regarded his outstretched hand with curious amusement before placing her palm against his. A slight tingling sensation passed between them, not unpleasant but definitely noticeable. "I am Lyra, diplomatic envoy of the Vesperan Concord," she replied. "Your species still employs physical contact as a greeting." "Fascinating. Some habits die hard," Zane said with a smile, withdrawing his hand. "The Vesperans, I'm not familiar with your species. New to the Galactic Council." Lyra's lips curved slightly. "Not new, merely selective in our engagements. We've observed galactic politics for centuries, though this is our first significant diplomatic outreach in some time." "And what brings the Vesperans out of seclusion now?" Zane asked, genuinely intrigued. "Your maps," she replied simply. "They reveal pathways through the Epsilon sector that could reduce travel time to our home systems by 30%. Routes we hadn't considered viable." Zane nodded, professional pride warming his chest. "The stellar drift patterns in that sector are subtle but predictable if you know what to look for. Most navigation systems don't account for the gravitational influence of the dark matter concentrations I discovered there." "Indeed." Lyra's violet eyes seemed to gleam. "Perhaps you would share your methods with me. The Vesperan Concord would be most appreciative." "I'd be happy to discuss them," Zane replied, finding himself unusually eager to impress this mysterious envoy. Over the next hour, they moved to a quieter corner of the reception hall, where Zane explained his mapping techniques using the holographic projector built into his wrist device. Lyra asked insightful questions that revealed a deep understanding of astrophysics, occasionally offering perspectives that hadn't occurred to him. "Your approach is refreshingly intuitive," she commented as he concluded his explanation. "Most species rely heavily on computational models, but you've combined technology with observational wisdom. It's quite attractive." Zane felt a pleasant warmth spread through him at what seemed like a personal compliment. 6 months stationed on the Celestial Pearl had provided few opportunities for anything resembling flirtation. The Vesper and Concord values such balanced approaches. Lyra continued, "Perhaps you and I should forge a soul bridge. I believe our energies would resonate quite harmoniously." Zane nearly choked on his drink. Was she suggesting what he thought she was suggesting? Diplomatic functions occasionally led to more personal connections between representatives, though he'd never expected to catch the attention of someone like Lyra. "A soul bridge," he repeated, trying to sound casual while desperately searching his mental database of sinocultural customs. The term wasn't familiar, but the implication seemed clear enough. "Yes," Lyra confirmed, her eyes showing slight surprise at his hesitation. "It would allow for a deeper exchange of perspectives. Quite beneficial for both of us, I would imagine." Interspecies relationships weren't uncommon in the diplomatic corps, though they typically required careful research regarding biological compatibility. Still, Lyra seemed humanoid enough that the basics should be manageable. And there was something about her that drew him in a way he hadn't experienced before. "I'd be interested in learning more about this soul bridge," Zane replied carefully. Lyra's expression brightened. "Excellent. Then it's settled. Meet me in the meditation garden at the lunar apex. We'll need privacy for the initial connection." Before Zane could ask for clarification, she was called away by another diplomat. She gave him a lingering look before departing, the luminescent flowers in her hair seeming to pulse slightly brighter. Zane spent the remainder of the reception pondering the interaction. The meditation garden was known for its secluded alcoves, often used for private discussions or quiet contemplation. A perfect place for a romantic encounter. He couldn't be certain, but Lyra's interest seemed genuine. Later that evening, as Zane approached the meditation garden, he found himself unusually nervous. The station's artificial day cycle had transitioned to night mode, with ambient lighting reduced to mimic evening on Earth. The garden itself was illuminated primarily by bioluminescent plants from a dozen different worlds, creating pools of soft, colored light. Lyra was waiting beside a reflective pool, the water's surface mirroring the artificial stars projected on the garden's dome ceiling. She had changed from her formal diplomatic attire into flowing robes of silver-blue fabric that seemed to move with a life of its own. "You came," she said, sounding pleased. "I wasn't certain you would understand the importance of this ritual." "Ritual?" Zane's confident smile faltered slightly. Perhaps soul bridge was a more formal concept than he'd initially assumed. "I'm always eager to learn about new cultural exchanges," he replied diplomatically, keeping his options open. Lyra's lips curved in what might have been amusement. Most species require extensive preparation before attempting a soul bridge, but humans have a remarkable adaptability that fascinates us. Your neural pathways are surprisingly compatible." She gestured to a circular arrangement of cushions beside the pool. "Please, make yourself comfortable." The alignment process requires physical proximity. Zane took a seat across from her, wondering if he had misinterpreted the situation entirely. The setting felt more ceremonial than romantic. "The soul bridge is an ancient practice among my people," Lyra explained as she arranged small crystalline objects in a pattern between them. "It creates a temporary resonance between minds, allowing for the sharing of thoughts, experiences, and knowledge." Zane blinked. "Are you talking about telepathy?" "A crude approximation, but essentially correct," she replied. "Though the connection goes deeper than mere thought transmission. For a brief time, our energies will intertwine." This was definitely not what Zane had expected when she'd suggested they forge a soul bridge at the reception. His experience with alien customs had taught him caution, but his curiosity, the trait that had made him an exceptional cartographer, urged him forward. "Is it dangerous?" he asked. "Not typically," Lyra answered with confident assurance. "The process is quite safe when properly conducted, and I assure you, I am well trained in the ancient ways." She reached out her hands, palms up. "If you're willing, place your hands upon mine." The initial contact establishes the baseline resonance. Zane hesitated only briefly before placing his hands on hers. The same tingling sensation he felt during their handshake returned, but stronger now, a pleasant buzzing that traveled up his arms. "Now we synchronize our breathing," Lyra instructed. "Follow my rhythm." As they breathed together, the crystals between them began to emit a soft glow. The tingling sensation intensified, spreading throughout Zane's body. The garden around them seemed to fade, the colors becoming more vivid while simultaneously receding in importance. "The bridge forms," Lyra whispered, her voice somehow both audible and felt directly within his mind. "Open yourself to the connection, Zane Reynolds." A sudden rush of sensation flooded through him. Impressions, emotions, and images not his own. He caught glimpses of a world with twin moons, cities built into living crystal formations, and ceremonies conducted under starlit skies. Alongside these came understanding. The soul bridge was indeed a sacred ritual among Vesperans, typically reserved for those forming lifelong connections. As the initial flood of sensations settled into a steady stream, Zane realized with growing alarm that this was no casual encounter. In Vesperan culture, what he had just agreed to was closer to an engagement ceremony than a date. "You're surprised." Lyra's voice came both from across the cushions and from somewhere inside his own thoughts. "You didn't understand what I was proposing." "I thought you were flirting," Zane admitted, finding it impossible to hide his thoughts within the connection. "In human terms, I thought you were suggesting something more temporary." Understanding dawned in Lyra's expression, followed by what felt through their connection like amused embarrassment. "Oh, how terribly presumptuous of me. I had read that humans form connections quickly, but I should have explained more clearly." "Maybe we should stop," Zane began, but Lyra's concern flowed through their link. "We cannot simply halt the process now," she explained. "The bridge has begun to form. But do not worry, without the completion ritual, it will remain temporary. When we separate, the connection will fade." Relief washed through Zane, though mixed with an unexpected twinge of disappointment. The sensation of another mind touching his was unlike anything he had experienced, intrusive yet oddly intimate in a way that transcended physical connection. "Then let's make the most of this cultural exchange," he suggested, settling back onto his cushion. "After all, this is what diplomacy is all about, right? Understanding each other better." Lyra's smile reflected genuine appreciation, felt as much as seen. "Indeed, and perhaps when the bridge fades, we might discuss human courtship rituals. For purely diplomatic purposes, of course." As the crystals pulsed with increasing brightness, Zane found himself laughing, a sound echoed by Lyra, both audibly and within the growing bond between them. What he had thought was flirting had turned out to be something far more profound, but as the boundaries between their minds continued to blur, he couldn't bring himself to regret the misunderstanding. Little did he know that this cosmic miscommunication would soon become the least of his concerns, as the soul bridge between them was about to reveal secrets neither of them was prepared to discover. The unintended bond. 3 days after the soul bridge ritual, Zane woke with a start, heart racing. The dream had been vivid. A crystalline city he'd never visited, bathed in the light of twin moons. He could still feel the cool evening breeze carrying scents of flowers that didn't exist on Earth. Most disconcerting of all, he remembered the dream from a perspective that wasn't his own, looking through eyes that perceived colors beyond the human spectrum. "This isn't normal," he muttered, pressing his palms against his temples. Since the ritual with Lyra, he'd experienced occasional flashes of foreign memories and sensations, but nothing this intense. As he showered and dressed for his shift, Zane tried to dismiss the experience as lingering effects from the ritual. Lyra had assured him the connection would fade. Yet something felt different this morning. A subtle awareness in the back of his mind, like knowing someone was in the room even with his back turned. The Celestial Pearls corridors were busy with the morning shift change. Zane nodded to colleagues as he made his way to the cartography lab, trying to focus on the day's work ahead. The Terran Exploration Guild had requested detailed mappings of an asteroid field near the border of Vesperan territory, a coincidence that made him think again of Lyra. "You're late, Reynolds," commented Dr. Vandermeer, his supervisor, as Zane entered the lab. "Not like you." "Sorry, rough night," Zane replied, taking his seat at the holographic mapping station. He immersed himself in work, manipulating three-dimensional star charts with practiced ease. The asteroid field presented interesting challenges. Unusual gravitational fluctuations suggested hidden mass that didn't appear on standard scans. As he adjusted parameters to account for the anomalies, a strange certainty came over him. Without fully understanding why, Zane added a specific gravitational vector to his calculations, one not supported by any of his readings but that somehow felt correct. When the simulation ran, the model stabilized perfectly, revealing a coherent pattern to the asteroid movements. "How did you account for that drift pattern?" Dr. Vandermeer asked, peering over his shoulder. "Our sensors didn't detect any gravitational source there." Zane stared at his own work, unsure how to explain. "I just had a hunch." Before Vandermeer could question him further, Zane's communicator chimed with an incoming message. The ID signature was unfamiliar, but as soon as he accepted the call, Lyra's face appeared on the small screen. "We need to talk," she said without preamble, her normally composed features tight with concern. "Privately. Now." 20 minutes later, they met in a quiet corner of the station's arboretum. Lyra paced nervously, the luminescent flowers in her hair pulsing with an agitated rhythm. "It didn't fade," she said as soon as he approached. "The soul bridge, it should have dissolved within hours without the completion ritual, but it's still there. I can feel it." "I had a dream last night," Zane admitted. "I was seeing through your eyes, wasn't I? Walking through a city on your homeworld." Lyra stopped pacing, her violet eyes widening. "The capital city of Vespera Prime. But that's impossible. An incomplete bridge shouldn't allow dream sharing." "And there's more," Zane continued. "This morning I solved a complex gravitational equation using knowledge I shouldn't have. Somehow I knew about dark matter concentrations that weren't in our sensor readings. Vesperans have a natural sensitivity to dark matter," Lyra whispered. "It's how our navigation systems function." They stared at each other, the implications settling between them. "What exactly happens in the completion ritual?" Zane finally asked. Lyra sank onto a nearby bench, the flowing fabric of her robes settling around her. "It seals the bond, makes it permanent. Soul bridges are meant for life partners, researchers who work as one mind, or warriors who fight as a single unit. The incomplete ritual should have been merely educational." "Well, something went wrong," Zane said, taking the seat beside her. "Or right, depending on your perspective. The question is, what do we do now?" Before Lyra could answer, a sharp pain lanced through Zane's head. He gasped, doubling over. Through the haze of pain, he felt Lyra's hand on his shoulder and realized she was experiencing the same agony. When the pain subsided, they found themselves staring at each other in shock. For a brief moment, Zane hadn't just felt Lyra's pain. He had been Lyra, seeing himself through her eyes, feeling her concern for him layered over her own discomfort. "That's new," he managed weakly. "The bridge is strengthening," Lyra said, her voice tinged with awe and worry. "This shouldn't be possible between different species without significant preparation and compatibility testing. Maybe humans and Vesperans are more compatible than anyone realized." "Perhaps," Lyra conceded, though she looked unconvinced. "But there's something else. The ritual we performed. I've been reviewing the ancient texts, and there are rare accounts of spontaneous completions, cases where the bridge forms fully despite an incomplete ritual. And what causes that? Zane asked. The texts are vague, but they speak of souls already known to each other and minds destined to join. She shook her head. It's considered mystical nonsense by modern Vesperan scientists. Yet here we are, Zane pointed out, sharing dreams and knowledge. What else should we expect? Increased empathic awareness, sharing of skills, emotional transference, Lyra listed. Eventually, in fully bonded pairs, limited communication across vast distances. But Zane, there's something you should know. Her words were cut short as the station's emergency alert system blared to life. Red warning lights bathed the arboretum as a voice announced over the communication system. Attention all personnel. Unidentified vessels approaching. Defense protocols activated. This is not a drill. All civilians proceed to designated shelter areas. All security personnel report to duty stations. Zane's communicator buzzed immediately with a priority message from the cartography department. They need me in the command center, he explained, already standing. The captain uses my maps for tactical planning. Lyra rose as well, her expression grave. I must contact the Vesperan consulate. But Zane, we need to be careful. If others discover what's happened between us, we'll figure it out later, he promised. Meet me in the meditation garden after this is resolved. As they parted ways, Zane felt a lingering connection, a thread of awareness that stretched between them even as the physical distance grew. Whatever was happening to them, one thing was becoming clear. Their accidental bond was far from temporary. The station's command center was a flurry of activity when Zane arrived. Officers moved with practiced efficiency between monitoring stations as Captain Horvath stood at the central holographic display, studying the approaching vessels. Reynolds, good, the captain acknowledged as Zane approached. I need detailed navigational data on the Krull expanse. These ships emerged from the asteroid field you've been mapping. Zane quickly brought up the relevant star charts, expanding the holographic display to show the complex gravitational dynamics of the region. As he manipulated the data, he found himself drawing on that strange new certainty again, adjusting variables based on knowledge that felt borrowed. There, he said, highlighting a particular route through the asteroid field. They're using the dark matter concentrations to mask their approach vector. Standard sensors wouldn't detect them until they were much closer. Captain Horvath gave him a sharp look. How did you determine that? Those readings aren't showing any dark matter signatures. Before Zane could formulate an explanation, the tactical officer interrupted. Captain, we're being hailed. The main view screen activated to reveal a face Zane recognized with shock. A Vesperan male, but with markings distinctly different from Lyra's. Where her features were harmonious and balanced, this individual's face bore angular scarification patterns that seemed to disrupt the natural iridescence of their skin. Celestial Pearl Station. The Vesperan spoke, his voice carrying none of the melodic quality of Lyra's. I am Commander Therix of the Vesperan Separatist Movement. We know you harbor an envoy from the corrupt Concord. Surrender her to us, and your station will remain intact. A cold wash of fear that wasn't entirely his own flooded through Zane. Through their unexpected bond, he could feel Lyra's reaction to the name, recognition, dread, and a deep-seated anger. Captain Horvath stepped forward, her posture unyielding. This is a neutral diplomatic station, under Galactic Council protection. We don't surrender our guests to threats. State your business properly or withdraw. Therix's expression hardened. The Concord's lies have poisoned the galaxy long enough. Their envoy carries secrets that belong to all Vesperans. You have 1 hour to comply. As the communication ended, Captain Horvath turned to her crew. Options, people. While the tactical team debated defensive strategies, Zane slipped away from the command center. The fear he'd felt through the bond was growing stronger. Lyra was in immediate danger, and somehow he knew exactly where to find her. He found her in a service corridor near the diplomatic quarters, pressed against the wall as two figures in station security uniforms approached her from either end of the hallway. Something about their movements told Zane these weren't actual security personnel. Without conscious thought, Zane accessed a maintenance hatch he shouldn't have known existed, dropping into the corridor behind one of the false officers. Drawing on combat training he'd never received, he executed a perfect disabling strike to the back of the infiltrator's neck. As the first attacker crumpled, Lyra moved with fluid grace, using the distraction to sidestep the second assailant's lunging grab. Together, operating with uncanny coordination, they neutralized both threats in seconds. "How did you know?" Lyra asked breathlessly as they secured the unconscious infiltrators. "The same way I knew that combat move," Zane replied. "From you, through whatever this is between us." He gestured between them. "They're separatists." "Advance agents," she confirmed. "Therix must have had them aboard the station before his ships arrived." She knelt to examine one of the unconscious figures, pulling aside their collar to reveal the same angular scarification pattern as the commander. "We need to get somewhere secure. There will be others." As they moved through the station's maintenance tunnels, Zane felt the bond between them strengthening further, their thoughts and movements aligning with increasing harmony. When they encountered another separatist agent, they reacted as a single unit, Zane ducking while Lyra struck, their movements perfectly coordinated without a word spoken between them. "This is beyond a standard soul bridge," Lyra said as they found temporary shelter in an unused storage bay. "Even completed bonds between Vesperans don't develop this level of synchronization so quickly." "Maybe that's why the separatists want you," Zane suggested. "What secrets was Therix talking about?" Lyra's expression grew troubled. "The Vesperan Concord has been researching enhanced bonding techniques, ways to strengthen our natural abilities. My diplomatic mission was a cover. I'm actually a scientist. My real purpose here was to study other species for potential compatibility." "And you found one," Zane concluded. "Me. Completely by accident," she admitted. "The separatists must have learned of the research. They believe such abilities should be used for Vesperan advancement, not shared with the galaxy." A sudden explosion rocked the station, sending them both staggering. Through their strengthening bond, Zane could sense the layout of the entire station, including damaged sections and potential escape routes. "We need to get to a shuttle," he said. "The separatists are targeting the station's communication array. They want to isolate us before boarding in force. If they capture us, capture this bond we formed, they could use it as a weapon," Lyra warned. "A template for forced connections rather than voluntary ones." The implications chilled Zane to the core. What had begun as a cultural misunderstanding had become something with galaxy-wide ramifications. As they made their way toward the shuttle bay, navigating through increasingly damaged sections of the station, one thing became clear. The accidental ritual that had joined them had created something neither of their species fully understood, something both wonderful and dangerous. And as another explosion rocked the station, Zane knew their journey together was just beginning. The unintended bond between them might have been formed through misunderstanding, but it would be tested by fire, and perhaps become the very thing that saved them all.